Today, I thought I'd share some tips for animating for beginners that I think will be really helpful to you, especially if you feel stuck or just not really sure where to start. So, my first tip is to always start with a blocking phase. And blocking in animation is basically just blocking out where everything is going to go. You're also just kind of figuring out the timing and the general movement of everything in the animation. The reason why I find this so helpful is because it kind of forces you to not really worry about details. You're just using basic shapes to make sure that everything works like it's supposed to. I kind of think of this as like an author creating a rough draft for a book. You make the rough draft and then you can go back and add edits later. This is kind of the rough draft for an animator. You make your rough animation and then you can go back and add things and add details later. But right now, you just want to get the structure and the foundation. That way, you can go back and edit it later. If you find yourself always like bogged down by the details, like I do, I think this will really help with that. And my next tip is to either find or make a video to reference before you animate. This is especially important if you are making a complex animation. I find it really, really helpful to have some sort of visual source to look at so you can reference and make sure that everything looks the way that it should. For this animation that I'm doing, I knew that I wanted my animation to have a girl and a sword and she's fighting, but that was kind of it. And I wasn't really sure where to go. And so what I did is I just went on YouTube. I think I typed in like sword fighting video reference, and this video popped up. And basically what I did is just I watched the video and I decided what parts I wanted to use. And I basically just sort of paused the video at certain parts, make a quick like thumbnail of that action, and then go to the next part and the next part. I ended up making these tiny little thumbnail sketches of the animation. So that's another thing that kind of goes with this is I really recommend making thumbnail sketches or like having a pretty concrete plan of how you want your animation to look. This is going to make it a lot easier on you once you actually start animating. For this video, I just picked bits and pieces that I wanted to use, but I still had to find a way to make those things flow. So like there's a part where he kicks and I wanted there to be a part where in the animation where my character kicks out, but there's also the part where she unsheaths her sword. And so I kind of had to find a way to make sure that these all go together because I can't go from her having her sword unsheathed and then also have it like resheathed in the next slide with her kicking. You know what I mean? So like you kind of have to find a way to make sure that everything flows together and that you can make it work. And so I find these thumbnails really helpful. Another really cool thing about having a video that you can like look at and reference is you'll find these small things that people do that really help sell that your animation is alive. And in this example, the person with the sword, they end up throwing their sword in the air and catching it right before they unsheath it. And I thought that was a really cool tidbit. I actually really like that I added that in my animation because I feel like it gave it a little bit more. It wasn't just them like unsheathing their sword, it was like they threw it up and then did it. It gave them a little bit more character. I feel like part of what makes like animated movies so successful is whenever they add these like human elements to things. And that's another reason why I really recommend finding a video reference because you'll find these tiny little things that people do that will just add to your animation if you add it in. My next tip for you is to use smear frames. So smear frames was a newer concept for me. This was actually my first time doing it in an animation and I actually really like it. So what a smear frame is basically you use it whenever there's a quick motion. What you do is you have frame A and frame B, and the smear frame goes in between them. And you see these a lot in old cartoons. You'll see smear frames a lot. It looks crazy when you look at it like as a still frame, but in the animation, our eyes just see it as like a quick movement. So to make a smear frame, the object that's moving really quickly, you're just going to draw it multiple times in one frame. I did this for the sword in my animation, which you can see, and I think it added a lot to it. Actually, I'm really happy with it. It's a lot of fun to draw. And my next tip is to animate what you want to create. This advice might be a little bit controversial, but I really don't believe in animating a bouncing ball. I understand that it can be helpful, and if you want to do it, then do it. But if you really don't feel like animating a bouncing ball, then don't. I'm a big proponent of making learning fun. And so if you're trying to learn to animate, I think you would be much better off animating something that's gonna move you towards your goal than a bouncing ball. So for example, if you really want to animate these cool fight scenes, like these like super cool, there's all kinds of stuff going on, there's explosions, there's swords, like all this stuff moving, that's like your goal is to animate scenes like that, then I don't think you should start with a bouncing ball. Like I think you should start if you want to animate people, then I think you should start with animating people. Obviously, it can get complicated very easily, but I think you if you have more fun animating people, then that's what I think you should do. You could start with a like animating a walking scene. In one of my videos, I step by step go through the process of animating a walking scene. You can actually check that out. I'll leave a link in the video. But yeah, like they're simple. You can start really simple and then move your way up to more complex. Again, if you're not having fun animating a bouncing ball, then like don't do it. Find ways to make learning fun for yourself. That way you actually enjoy the process. And if you're new to animating in Procreate, I really recommend you check out my video. It goes over everything you need to know basically to animate in Procreate. You can check that video out here. And other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one. Bye!